Something doesn't add up. A woman rises to national attention, accused of fueling one of the most dangerous waves of xenophobic tension in South Africa, and then, in a viral moment, she claims it all traces back to a deeply personal story, a broken relationship involving her mother and a Nigerian man. If that claim is true, it raises a chilling question. Can one personal grievance really ignite a movement that puts thousands at risk? And if it's not true, then what's the real motive behind it? Because what's unfolding here is not just about one individual. It's about influence, emotion, power, and how quickly a narrative can turn into a nationwide crisis. Before we go any further, take a second to like this video and subscribe. Stories like this don't just disappear, they evolve, and you'll want to stay informed as new details emerge.
To share with you a story, like I said, since you guys so desperately want to paint me as a bitter person, and maybe I am bitter, who knows, because I was 14 years old living with my mother when I saw her breaking down, crying tears, because when she went to Home Affairs, she found out that she had been married off to a Nigerian that she didn't even know. So all of us had a problem with our identity because our mother basically was using a different surname, and from the surname, someone that she didn't know. And they were telling her that the only way to get out of this is to get a divorce, and to get a divorce would mean that this person takes half of everything that she has and she owns. This person that she doesn't know, she's never met in her life, who came all the way from Nigeria to steal an identity and pretend that he is married to her. I guess over time they realized that stealing or faking marriages doesn't work. Now they started buying off South African women to marry them, which is working quite well for them.
This story matters right now because tensions linked to xenophobia in South Africa have been building again. Communities are uneasy. Social media is inflamed. And voices like Jacinta Ngobi's are gaining traction in ways that can either calm or escalate an already volatile situation. For viewers who may not fully understand the background, xenophobia in South Africa is not new. For years, there have been periodic outbreaks of violence and hostility toward foreign nationals, particularly migrants from other African countries. These incidents have led to looting, displacement, injuries, and in some cases, loss of life. The reasons are complex: high unemployment, economic inequality, political frustration. In many communities, foreign nationals are blamed, fairly or unfairly, for taking jobs or running successful small businesses that outcompete locals. But beyond these structural issues, individuals and influential voices have often played a role in shaping public sentiment. Jacinta Ngobi's has recently been placed at the center of that conversation. According to circulating claims, she has been labeled by some online as a symbolic figure tied to anti-foreigner rhetoric, even described in extreme terms as a queen of xenophobia. That label alone shows how emotionally charged and polarizing the situation has become. Then came the viral video. In it, she allegedly reveals something deeply personal, that her involvement or stance is rooted in her mother's past relationship with a Nigerian man, a relationship that reportedly ended in heartbreak. On the surface, it sounds almost too simple, too personal, too convenient. But here's where things get disturbing. Because when a personal story is used to justify or explain a broader movement affecting millions, it forces us to question whether we're seeing the truth or a narrative designed to resonate emotionally. Let's break down what we know so far. The timeline begins with rising online conversations about xenophobia. Videos, protests, and statements have been circulating, with different figures emerging as voices within the movement. At some point, Jacinta Ngobi's name begins to appear more frequently. Clips of her speaking, whether in interviews, public gatherings, or social media posts, start gaining attention. Then comes the viral moment. A video spreads rapidly across platforms. In it, she reportedly connects her views to a personal family experience involving her mother and a Nigerian man. The video gains traction quickly. Thousands share it. Reactions pour in. Some people sympathize. They see a human story, a daughter affected by her mother's pain. Others are outraged. They argue that no personal experience justifies fueling hostility against an entire group of people. And then contradictions begin to emerge. What happened next raised serious questions. Was the video taken in full context? Was it edited? Was the statement meant literally? Or was it being interpreted in a way that amplified its impact? Because in today's digital environment, context is everything, and also the first thing to disappear. As the video spreads, different versions of the narrative begin to form. One version frames her as someone driven by unresolved personal trauma. Another suggests the story is being used as a justification after the fact, a way to explain actions that may have deeper political or social motivations. And this is the part few people are talking about. When individuals become symbols in highly emotional movements, their personal stories often become tools, whether intentionally or not. So the question becomes, is this really about one family's past, or is that story being used to anchor something much bigger? Let's look at the broader implications. South Africa is already dealing with significant economic pressure. Unemployment remains high, especially among young people. Informal businesses, many run by foreign nationals, are often at the center of local economies. In this environment, narratives matter. When influential figures speak, or are perceived to speak, in ways that target specific groups, it can quickly shift from words to action. We've seen this pattern before. Statements turn into sentiment. Sentiment turns into tension. Tension turns into confrontation. And once that cycle begins, it becomes very difficult to control. If the claims about Jacinta Ngobi's influence are accurate, then her words, and how they are interpreted, carry significant weight. But there's another layer. Public figures are often misrepresented, misquoted, or deliberately framed in ways that serve certain agendas. So we have to ask, who benefits from this narrative? Is she being accurately portrayed as a central figure in xenophobic rhetoric? Or is she being amplified or even targeted as part of a larger information battle? Because in situations like this, the truth is rarely simple. Public reaction has been intense. On social media, opinions are deeply divided. Some users defend her, arguing that personal experiences shape perspectives and shouldn't be dismissed. Others strongly condemn the idea that a single experience could justify broader hostility. There are also voices calling for calm, reminding people that individual actions should not define entire communities. Meanwhile, critics have pointed out the danger of reducing complex national issues to personal grievances. Media coverage has been equally mixed. Some outlets focus on the viral nature of the video and the emotional story behind it. Others take a more cautious approach, questioning the accuracy of the claims and the potential consequences of amplifying them. Officials, in many cases, have remained measured, emphasizing the importance of maintaining peace and avoiding escalation. But here's where things get even more complicated, because once a narrative goes viral, it becomes almost impossible to control how it's interpreted. Even if clarifications are made later, the initial impact often lingers. People remember the headline, not the correction. So what happens next? At this stage, there are several possible paths. If the situation continues to gain attention, there could be increased scrutiny, both of Jacinta Ngobi's statements and of the broader movement she's associated with. Investigations could look into whether any rhetoric has crossed legal boundaries, particularly if it's linked to incitement. There may also be efforts from community leaders and organizations to de-escalate tensions and promote dialogue. At the same time, social media platforms could play a role in moderating how the content spreads, especially if it's deemed misleading or harmful. But outcomes are never guaranteed. And that uncertainty is what makes this story so important. Because it's not just about what has already happened. It's about what could happen next. Will this narrative fade as quickly as it appeared? Or will it become another chapter in a much longer and more troubling pattern? As viewers, it's important to approach stories like this carefully. Not every viral claim tells the full truth. Not every narrative is complete. And not every emotional story reflects the bigger picture. But ignoring it isn't the answer either. Because stories like this, whether fully accurate or partially misunderstood, have real-world consequences. They shape opinions. They influence actions. They affect lives. And in a situation as sensitive as xenophobia, those effects can be profound. So, as this story continues to unfold, one question remains. Are we seeing the truth behind a personal revelation, or are we witnessing the construction of a narrative that could have far-reaching consequences? Whatever the answer is, it's clear that this isn't just about one person. It's about how quickly emotions can turn into movements, and how important it is to separate fact from interpretation before those movements take on a life of their own. Let me know what you think in the comments.